In witnessing this tribute to the different spiritual paths, perceiving the goodness of each, even if it's not our particular path, I think we felt a vibration of love. We felt a vibration of connection, despite the fact that we might not resonate with that particular form of spirituality or spiritual practice. I think what we recognize is an underlying unity to all the teachings, that all different paths, as we say in Science of Mind, is that they're all leading to the same truth. We don't claim to be the only right path, and that's one of the things that actually drew me into this teaching, was its love and respect for all the diversity of life and each one finding their way into knowing the truth. And that truth is oneness. Is that behind all the seeming appearances of this and that, you, me, him, her, it's all one life. It's one light, one love, God's light, God's love. And that is an infinite source of light and love that expresses through each of us. So every attribute that we associate with God lies in all of us. And it may not be so fully expressed all the time out there, because we've been created with free will. We have the freedom to discover our divine nature for ourselves, and along the way, we can feel separate from God. We can start operating from a me versus you, or an us versus them consciousness, which creates problems in the world. And what we say in Science of Mind is that all suffering arises from a false sense of being separate from God. Our false sense of separation is what obstructs the light from being shone through us as brightly as it could be. All that we label as negative, as evil, is simply the absence of awareness of that light in us. But that darkness, the moment we turn to the light and let it shine, when we turn to the light of truth, that, you know what, no matter what, we're all one, then the light shines forth, and the light dispels the darkness. The darkness is not a power in and of itself. So then our hearts and minds are illumined by that sense of oneness, and helps us to see beyond the outer differences and operate from a sense of connection with all beings, all things. You know, over the years, I think we've seen tremendous progress made in this idea of acceptance of our differences, tolerance, even embracing each other's differences. When I was a kid, if I told people that my church was having a ceremony where the kids were going to light candles honoring all the world religions, it's like, oh, no, we have to be kind, but we don't accept them. I mean, we know that's not the right way. What progress we've made. But I think we all still feel, yes. I think we still feel that spark of God's infinite light in our souls that calls us to continue, that calls us to go beyond, to shed even more light in those areas where there's darkness, in those areas where we're caught up in our differences, my ideology versus your ideology, my political party versus your political party, my opinions versus your opinions. As Dr. Marc reminded us a couple of weeks ago, in God, there are no opinions. We're all one. There's just one opinion. We're all wonderful. We're beautiful. We're filled with grace and love and beauty. And I love that it was our youth that stood up here to light these candles and to honor these traditions. Because, you know, we look upon the youth in our world as the future, right? They're the next generation. And because they've not been conditioned by all the beliefs of separation, some of the old thinking that doesn't serve us today, that many of us were exposed to, then they are more open to seeing things in a new way, to have that new thought that recognizes the oneness behind all the diversity. So I think we look to our youth with that expectancy of them dispelling the darkness of divisiveness that's in the world today. No pressure on you guys or anything, but but you know, we look at them with that sense of hope. But you know, in Science of Mind, we're taught that we can't make it about anyone else. It's not about saying, okay, well, thank God they're here and they'll change things. That we have to take responsibility for ourselves. Our youth represent that part of us that's open to the light, that new way of seeing things. And the other part that's also not what everyone wants to hear is that we're taught not to put the burden of greater good on others, like those people who are so hateful and whose behaviors are so bad. Well, when they change, finally, when they come around, then the world will be a better place. Then we can be at peace. Then we can be happy. You know, those patterns of thinking that say it's about them changing just create that sense of separation. It allows us to stay stuck in our sense of woundedness, of anger, of resentment and contempt. And, you know, if we stay there, how much oneness are we feeling? How connected to God's love are we feeling? You know, when I came into this teaching after I started taking classes, early on I was introduced to two ideas that really made a profound impact on me in terms of being able to perceive that connection with those whose actions I didn't necessarily like or approve of. The first was being introduced to the teachings of Rumi, the Sufi mystic. Sufism is the mystical branch of Islam. And his saying that out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. You know, that field is the place of light and love in us that knows its oneness, that knows the goodness of God, that's bigger than ways that we haven't shown up at our best, or greater than the behaviors of those that have hurt us. And when we remember that, we can turn to that greater presence of light and let it guide us into that place where we can be at peace despite our differences. And the other was a compassion meditation where you are asked to sit down for a period of time and just go through, very similar to the poem we heard from Maya Angelou, just like me, to go. If there's someone whose behavior we object to, say, just like me, that person has felt inadequate. Just like me, that person has suffered. Just like me, that person has worried and feels fear. And also, just like me, that person seeks to be happy and well. And I really turned rigorously to this practice of doing that meditation and looking at my Rumi quote after 9/11. To be able to know that there was a greater presence in all of us and the events that were happening in the world. And of course, the universe gave me the opportunity to practice by putting a young man next to me at a coffee shop one evening when I was having dinner, who decided I was his best buddy and wanted to share with me his idea that 9/11 happened because it was God's way of punishing America for our acceptance of gays and women's rights and all of these awful things. Not a warm, fuzzy feeling of light happening over here as I was listening to that. I pulled forth one of the greatest inventions of, you know, the divine mind in the human, and that is the frozen smile. It really gives you time to do spiritual practice really quickly in situations like this. And I did have that, you know, I went through that. Just like me, this person wants to be happy. Bottom line is, we didn't end up best buddies, but I was inspired. I felt like a spark to sit there calmly and just say, you know, I'm one of those people, and just like you, I'm horrified by what happened. Just like you, I want to see greater peace in the world. Just like you, I would like this whole problem to be resolved where we can all live at peace. In the end, we didn't change each other's opinions, but he left basically saying, you seem like a nice guy. I'll pray for you. And I said, you seem like a nice guy too. I'll do the same. We hadn't changed our opinions, but we had stepped into that field of greater light where we could live in respect of each other's differences. So I just want to remind us, yes, we can wait for the next generation to come forward with that greater sense of tolerance, or wait for others to change. But I prefer the idea. It's very empowering to me to know that we can do our inner work to open up to that sense of how we're all one on the unseen side of life, no matter how outwardly different we are. We have a great expectancy of our youth, but I say, as each of us opens to bringing forth that new generation of thinking in ourselves, to doing our work to perceive the oneness of all life, we get to contribute to the ever brighter light of the world.
Nice. All right, well, let's pray, everyone. Turn your attention inward, if you will. Remembering that right here where we are, the fullness, the allness of God, whatever name we use for it, is right here. So join me now in breathing in love and exhaling anything unlike it. And again, breathe in love into every cell of your being and exhale anything unlike it. And one more time, breathe in love, exhaling whatever is not love. And so in this holy and sacred moment, I speak this word for each and every one of us, that we are each a place where the light and love of God shines like no place else on earth. I know that that is the absolute and perfect spiritual truth. And anything unlike that, I know easily and gently falls away. I know that each and every one of us is a unique, special, valuable, beloved emanation of the Most High God. And as we know this for ourselves, we know it for all of those we love, our friends and family members. Whether they're here with us or not, we include them in our prayer. So we just see the walls of our heart expand and open in such a great way that no one is left out. That the love of God within each and every one of us is so great, is infinite, and in its infiniteness is able to include everyone. So we wrap our spiritual arms around our entire planet, touching every person everywhere. And silently we acknowledge that each and every one is our brother and our sister, and that we are absolutely blessed in consciousness by being together today. That our prayer is a blessing that is actually a light in the world in which we live. And so we let this be our declaration of peace and love and goodwill toward all. And with a full heart, I give thanks that this is the truth. We release this word knowing it is done. And so it is. Together we all say, Amen.